Welcome back. Scientists around the world are working hard to find a vaccine for the coronavirus as the pandemic ravages through the entire world. As we speak, there are very few nations in the world that have not reported cases, and yet there are many more that have such large numbers. You would think authorities would be looking to measures even more stringent. And yet again, there are others opening up, easing the lockdown for purely economic reasons.
Many cities around the world are still under lockdown, whether technically or fully, because of the coronavirus. And for many, lockdown measures have been in place for weeks. In the Russian capital, many streets remain relatively quiet. There's been a nationwide lockdown for almost 5 weeks. Residents have been staying indoors in compliance with the measures. The lockdown remains in Paris, France, as Parisian statues also help in spreading a health message. The country enters its last week of strict confinement rules amid a coronavirus crisis. Along the Trocadero Esplanade across the Seine from the Eiffel Tower, people were wearing masks across their mouth and noses as the city, usually crowded with tourists, stands silent. French authorities say they will gradually ease confinement measures from May the 11th, nearly 2 months after it started. But the health minister has warned that the date could change if infection numbers demand it. But many countries have begun easing restrictions. Spain, which began loosening restrictions last week, allowing elderly people and children to enjoy newfound freedom, encouraged a drop in death toll since March the 18th. The government has implemented a shift system, allocating time slots to different age groups, allowing people to take short walks and play sports from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. and 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. Between midday and 7 p.m. will be reserved for young children, with the remaining slots set aside for elderly and vulnerable people. South Koreans on Sunday flocked at amusement parks in Seoul, taking advantage of relaxed social distancing rules and a long weekend holiday. Many were seen wearing masks, and the park also required that people maintain a 2-meter distance apart from having their temperature checked at the entrance. Israel reopened some schools on Sunday, but the bid to edge back to normality as coronavirus concerns ease was boycotted by several municipalities and many parents who cited poor government preparation. Many countries have been looking to ease the economic impact of the coronavirus, as most economies have taken a huge hit. Unemployment figures have risen, and governments have been eager to reopen economies, also bowing to pressure from citizens eager to get back to life as they know it. Billionaire investor Warren Buffett says he does not know what will happen to the American stock market as the coronavirus pandemic punishes global health and economies.
Anything can happen in terms of markets. And if you can bet on America, but you have to be careful about how you bet. Simply because markets can do anything. On October, whatever it was in 1987, October 11th, I believe, Monday, markets went down 22% in one day.
Meanwhile, Americans in about half of U.S. states, led by Texas and Georgia, began on Friday from home confinement, while California and New York held fast to business closures and other restrictions imposed in the face of the pandemic. The U.S. has more than 1 million cases of coronavirus infections, with more than 65,000 deaths. Scientists have been racing to develop a vaccine to protect against the virus. Many countries have latched on these efforts, such as Australia, which is testing 2 potential vaccines on animals to find a safe and effective way to protect humans from the deadly virus.
The cells in the lung of the ferret have proteins on their surface which are very, very similar to humans. So it seems that viruses that infect the human lung also seem to infect the ferret lung.
Other coronaviruses.
The World Health Organization says the virus originated in nature, debunking theories it was developed in a lab.
Compared to other coronavirus sequences that are available, this is of a natural origin. And it originally comes from bats because the coronaviruses come from bats. What we need to do is really understand what we call the intermediate host. What is the animal that was infected from bats that potentially infected humans? It's important that we know this because from a public health point of view, it's very important that we find the animal host so that we prevent this, we call spillover, from an animal, transmission from an animal to a human.
The organization has also warned of the danger that vaccines and treatment for other illnesses may be ignored because of COVID-19 and says the world is just at the start of the pandemic.
Just before we go, here are other discussions in diplomatic circles. China has promised quick help for Peru in fighting the coronavirus as number of cases in the country has grown in recent days. President Martin Vizcarra said he got the assurance during a phone call with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping. He said the dialogue detailed Peru's approach to curb the pandemic and that there was great commitment from the Chinese government through the president to support not only with equipment and accessories, but mainly scientific knowledge. Peru has experienced a jump in cases by over 10,000 in just a matter of days, going above 42,500, while death toll from the disease totaled 1,200, almost 350 more in the same period. Pope Francis has called for transparent and impartial international scientific cooperation to discover a vaccine for the coronavirus, saying it should be made accessible around the world when found. In his regular Sunday address, now from the Papal Library instead of St. Peter's Square because of the lockdown in Italy, Pope Francis thanked all those around the world who are providing essential services. He encouraged all forms of international cooperation to deal with the crisis and combat the virus.
Desidero nello stesso tempo.
The government of Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro says it foiled a marine incursion by what it calls terrorist mercenaries who attempted to enter the country on speedboats that came from neighboring Colombia. Mr. Maduro frequently accuses political adversaries of attempting to overthrow his government with the support of the United States, which has vowed to force him from office through sanctions that have crippled the nation's exports. Critics of the ruling Socialist Party often dismiss such accusations as theatric stunts used as an excuse to arbitrarily detain government critics.
El espiral de violencia, generar caos y confusión en la población.
Finally, Afghan officials have launched a hunt to retrieve bodies of Afghan migrants from a river in a western province after reports that Iranian bodyguards tortured and threw Afghans into the river to prevent their entry into Iran. The country's foreign ministry, in a statement on Saturday, said an inquiry has been launched and a senior official in the presidential palace in Kabul said initial assessment suggested at least 70 Afghans who were trying to enter Iran from bordering Herat province were beaten and pushed into the Harihud River. The country's foreign ministry, in a statement on Saturday, said an inquiry has been launched and a senior official in the presidential palace in Kabul said initial assessment suggested at least 70 Afghans who were trying to enter Iran from bordering Herat province were beaten and pushed into the Harihud River. The Iranian consulate in Herat has denied the allegations of torture and subsequent drowning of dozens of Afghan migrant workers by border police. That's our package this week. Thanks again for watching. Again, remember, we must do our part as individuals to protect against this deadly disease. I am Amarachi Ubani. I'll see you next time.